Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to The Health Project, a series of podcasts that will answer all your questions on health, fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, everything about health. I'm your host, Shwetamri Shetty, and I will be bringing in a new expert every episode to talk about health and to inspire you to live a better, stronger, and healthier life. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Health Project, your fitness-friendly podcast covering a range of topics related to health and fitness and nutrition and lifestyle, so much more. I'm Shwetamri Shetty, your host, and as promised, I have Dr. Mahesh with me, a functional medicine specialist, expert. You can call him anything. He's an expert of everything, basically, at least for me. And he can shed light on literally anything. But today, we're going to talk about something that has been spoken about many times before, but lot of contradictions on this, a lot of people also giving out different types of information, especially on social media, and it can affect women deeply, if I may say so, because I've kind of made those changes ever since I've been advised, and it's made a difference. So now, as women, we rarely get the opportunity to take a menstrual leave, right? Yeah, so we're going to talk about periods today. And I think every time we've said that, I have a spasm, I'm hurting, and I can't work today, I can't come in for a call, we've always been looked down upon, or maybe I don't want to be so harsh, but it's always been like, what's the big deal? It's just your period, and it comes every month. You should be used to it by now, right? I've probably said it to some other women myself back in the day when I was less aware of, what it really does. And also because I've had pain-free periods all my life, and I couldn't really relate to what it's like. But yeah, I don't know if we will ever get into a space where we will get lucky enough to get menstrual leave, except maybe Spain, that has recently announced it. But let's at least understand what happens during periods and why is it so important to rest. Maybe you cannot rest from work, but at least rest from an intense activity or workout. And yeah, more about it from the expert himself. So really want to start all over again about, I'm saying all over again because I know you've discussed this so many times through so many different mediums, but why do you believe women should take a break when they have their periods?
Okay, fantastic. So, every month the women as a gender are literally given a bonus by nature in being able to detox not just the inner wall of the uterus in the form of a period, but literally to shed a lot of unwanted things that happen.
Yeah.
As you would expect, this cleansing process is going to be very intensive. What do we mean by intensive? So whether you look at Ayurveda or traditional Western medicine, and there was always the practice of saying that during that time, the women are asked to either not do a lot of housework, sit away from the main house, etc. And a lot of this got into social controversy, as if it's ostracization of women and treating them as impure and all the rest of it. Whereas the intentions, when it actually began, were truly pure, to try and give the woman a break during this cleansing process. Imagine, you're going through a Panchakarma process in Ayurveda, and you've, lined up back-to-back badminton matches, or going up from round robin all the way up to the finals. Are you going to be at your peak performance? No. It's never going to happen because you're doing a cleanse and a very intense additional activity at the same time. So Ayurveda was aware of this, but because of this social taboo of ostracization and things like that, it took on a different color. So we said, that's all nonsense. What does Ayurveda know? This is all, people who are male chauvinists trying to make all this up. Then in 1940, a group of women in the Yale University performed a simple study. They said that whenever a person is going through a cleanse or going through any inflammatory process, their body emits more of positive ions and they end up needing a lot of electrons or negatively charged particles. So they measured this. They put a little device on the index finger of women and they tracked it throughout the period cycle. And they found that at 2 points in the period cycle, one at ovulation, just for 1 day almost peaking, and at the onset of the period. At these two times, women had a far greater number of positive ions being discharged from their body, which was the measure for inflammation, for excess activity, for cleansing, and so on. When they saw this, this was objective evidence in the 20th century that's telling us that whatever Ayurveda and traditional wisdom told us about how any person who's going through a cleanse should ideally rest, because they are actually discharging a lot of positive ions and they need negative ions. This is where the science truly lies. And if at a time when you're cleansing and already drained out, literally you're draining out, at that time, if you do a lot of intense activity, it's like deep draining your battery. It's like you've got 20% charge and you decide to, play Call of Duty and do a video call at the same time, and you're doing very bandwidth intensive stuff. The kind of discharge that's going to happen, that's going to really damage your battery. So why would you want to do that? This whole idea of social equality having to be enforced, in this fashion. We know that men and women are physiologically different. And yes, I'm completely all for women's empowerment, and women not only can do everything a man can do, but do it better often, and often with a humane touch. But why do they have to do it on that day? It's just absurd. Men don't have that ability. Nature hasn't given us a way to cleanse our bodies once a month, to literally be reborn, So it's a disadvantage we are at. It isn't like, period is a disadvantage for a woman. It's actually an advantage. In many naturopathic circles, we believe that a period is a woman's way of getting rid of excess iron and toxin buildup. It's one of the reasons why women have higher longevity than men. There are other reasons, stress and, ability to express emotions and things like that. But we all know that there is a physiological role of a period, which is to cleanse. And nobody says that means that throughout the month you can't do anything. It's those 2 days. And even in those 2 days, if you do light yoga, if you do moon style yoga as opposed to sun style yoga, nobody is stopping you from going for a gentle walk. You can do all the stuff. And in fact, here's one, sort of pro tip for any woman who wants to try it. Take your shoes off, go barefoot on any surface other than concrete. So grass or earth is best, but even if you can't, any sort of general, even a tarred road works fine, as long as it isn't asphalt or concrete. What does this do? This is a little trick, right? So while the woman is discharging all these positive ions and ridding herself of a lot of material, the earth is the greatest donor of free electrons. It takes away the toxins, the positive ions from you, and gives you a whole bunch of negative ions. This process is called grounding and earthing. Now, there is a technical term for it. It's again proven in 20th century and 21st century science that standing barefoot on the ground or going for a short barefoot walk on the grass can make you instantly feel more charged up. And the electrons from the earth will come. And here's what Ayurveda says, right? Now, let's tie it back to what the ancient wisdom was. So this woman who was supposedly kept away from the home and this, that, and the other, she was advised to sit on the earth with a mat that is made of kusa grass. The kusa grass is what is given as offerings to Lord Ganpati in the Hindu tradition. Now, this would again seem like, this is some superstitious nonsense, etc. But the mat made of kusa grass becomes a superconductor of the electrons from the earth. So it pulls up all of that, and even if the lady is just sitting on it, she's going to get all the electrons from the earth running into her body. And the oxidative stress of the period is nullified by the antioxidant electrons from the earth. So that's the science behind this. Of course, there are exceptions. Many women have painless periods, like you said yourself. That's again fantastic, because that means you're in excellent health, and that's great. But when they are in such great health and they work out on their period days, then they say, hang on, everything that you say means that I should feel more pain or more discomfort, but it doesn't happen to me. That may well be because you're already in a level of health where that much doesn't make a difference to you, at least not one that you can feel immediately. But you will eventually feel those effects. And when you can avoid doing it and get into a gentler activity at that time, why not do it? There are other parts of the cycle where, in fact, Ayurveda and modern Western science recommend intense activity.
Oh.
These are times when your hormones are peaking. So, for example, let's divide this as seasons, right?
Yeah.
So, let's say the day that your period starts,
Yeah.
is the winter
Yeah.
of that thing, right? So, it's cold. You tend to have Ayurveda and Chinese medicine say a woman is colder at that time. So at that time, if you give her raw foods or cold foods or things that are hard to digest, she can't handle it. It'll make the whole body even colder. That's why baths are avoided at this time. When you try and do a head bath, especially with cold water, you will immediately sense, try this, all the women who are, watching, try it. If you go for a swim or you take a cold shower on your period day, within an hour you will notice the flow comes down. It's because the body that was discharging whatever inner wall of the uterus that it needed to remove, it suddenly got subjected to further cold, and that cold stops the flow.
Yeah.
So this obviously, so therefore, the winter is the time when you need to rest, when you need to recuperate. That's
snuggle.
literally, what you need to do.
Yeah.
So you do the winter. Immediately after the winter comes the spring. So once your 4-5 days of flow maximum in a lady are over, the spring starts. And what happens in the spring is that the hormone estrogen begins to grow. As a follicle matures in your ovary, it starts secreting the hormone estrogen. And estrogen is fantastic for skin, fantastic for your moods, for your energy. It gets a lot of bad rep.
Yeah.
But in its proper phase, in the spring phase or the follicular phase of the period, estrogen is fantastic. Now, this is a time when you can begin your activity again, and you can go ahead and do a lot of other things that ideally in a period you shouldn't be straining too much. So this is a good time to start a new dance class, for example. Okay, the hormone is beginning to grow, but it hasn't peaked yet. Somewhere around the middle of your period is when the summer comes after the spring. And in the summer, you have peak estrogen. And immediately after ovulation, you have peak progesterone begins to go up as well. So there are two hormones supporting your entire health at this time. This is the time for your new projects, for your HIIT kind of workout, for you to increase the amount that you bench press.
Yeah.
So whatever you need to do that requires more power and for you to push your limits around ovulation and just before and just after, that's the time for you to get into that activity. Then after about 7 days of ovulation is when autumn begins to set in, which is your premenstrual kind of time.
Yeah.
And that's the time when, again, if you don't have a healthy estrogen metabolism, if your diet is a little not okay, if you don't have enough fiber in your system, these are things that begin to then clog you up. You feel bloated, you get acne breakouts, your moods begin to swing. This is the autumn period, and autumn is always a time to cleanse. The leaves shed from the trees. That's what is beginning to happen. The body is beginning to collect the waste that it's going to expel.
Ready to expel.
So at this time, if you eat lightly, if you add cruciferous vegetables, if you add a lot of fiber to your diet, all the estrogen that was used up in the first part of your period cycle now needs to leave the body. And estrogen loves water. That's why you bloat up if your body can't remove the excess estrogen. So having the right plan for autumn is all about sort of allowing the cleanse to happen, making sure there's a lot of fiber, making sure that, again, you're not overly stressing yourself. You can continue to play your sport, you can continue to do your workouts, but don't push it. You're kind of winding down, going towards that winter again. So if you break up your activities into something like this, I've even had, women patients tell me that, Doc, what's the best time to ask for a raise from my boss? And I often tell them around ovulation is the perfect time because you will have your hormones peaking and it will show in your mental health as well. Your confidence, your everything. This was an experiment that was done in a US club. It's not the most nicest of sort of clubs, so we shan't take any names, but the tips that the waitresses received peaked during their ovulation times. This was a study done by a local university with the club, and naturally women projected greater confidence, greater ability to stand up for themselves and so on. So there is a pattern to a woman's period, And understanding that and aligning yourself with it is again going to just give you the superpower that you need, right? So it's just knowing that you have a cycle and knowing what to do, what's good to do at a certain point in the cycle and not do it at another. And the complete opposite can be true at a different phase, So that's the reason, why it's important for women to take some rest, to get some me time during the period cycle. In fact, there's a wonderful researcher, shout out to her, Sinu Joseph, has written a wonderful book called Ritu Vidya. Ritu Vidya literally means the science of the seasons. And Ritu Vidya gives many tips for how women can make sure that their periods are painless, what our ancient Ayurveda said, how it's still practiced in our villages. I'll tell you another little tip, right? So in that autumn phase, when we were speaking about excess estrogen being removed, just adding a moong dal or a urad dal khichdi as one of your meals can make a huge difference. Why does it work? Because modern science tells us these cereals are full of B vitamins. And B vitamins are needed by the liver to break down estrogen and remove it from the body.
Got it.
So you've got that little khichdi that you dial in at that time, and it's fantastic. Now again, even for PMS and the first 2-3 days of the period, taking little slivers of copra or dried coconut. Right? You take that along with small pieces of jaggery, organic jaggery, and you just chew it in your mouth.
So yummy.
Yeah, as it's a fantastic snack.
Yeah.
And what does it do? As you're thinking about it, even if you kind of picture yourself eating it, the mouth begins to salivate. What we often don't realize is saliva is the most potent antioxidant created in the human body. That's why when you cut, by instinct, you lick it.
Yeah.
You nick something as a child and you just do that.
Absolutely.
We do it because the saliva has the maximum amounts of antioxidants. And by eating the copra and the jaggery, you get small amounts of minerals and good fats from the coconut, minerals from the jaggery. Most importantly, it makes your saliva flow. And saliva has huge antioxidant properties. And the woman during her period is in her most oxidative state. So there you have a little balance that you can do. It takes nothing. Copra is easily available.
Absolutely.
Try it with a little piece of... And again, another potent antioxidant that one can use is a pinch of turmeric. Every glass of water on your period, just take a pinch of turmeric, not a teaspoon, not quarter teaspoon, just one pinch will do the trick. Put that into the water, mix it up and drink that water. We all know turmeric is a potent antioxidant.
Yes.
Again, it can make such a big difference to how your period behaves, how painlessly it happens and so on, And I loved hearing your description about painless periods.
Yes.
And according to Ayurveda, that is the healthiest sign of a period, that it comes almost unexpectedly. Right? So that's one of the happiest feedback we get from our patients, whether they're with PCOD or fertility, is, I had to take 4 days off before because I was, literally sort of crunched in two with pain. So, and now it's come and I've had to borrow a pad literally from a colleague at work.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Didn't remember that it was coming. This sort of a health transformation is possible if you align yourself with what's happening with your hormones inside your body. So, this is not at all about trying to take power away from women or telling them, we often, the joke that I often say is the guy who wants to sell the pads is going to show a woman jumping over a tennis net on that first day of the period cycle,
I
right?
remember this.
Which woman jumps over a net wearing a white skirt and white, sort of, what are we talking about? All right, it's, empowerment is one thing, but you should have some science behind it.
Yes.
Woke can't be, like you said, at the price of health. You cannot be so woke that it's going to kill you. You must have a balance. We get everything about equality, but play to your strengths. You're a woman genetically. You have hormones that work differently from men. Don't look at it as a weakness. Look at it as a strength. In fact, one of the proposals from Sinu Joseph, this researcher, is that women don't need Sundays. We're fine even if you don't give us Sundays. And, women can make up for it on other days of the week. But other days of the month, but every woman should be given the option of taking a couple of days off when she's on her period. I understand it's not an easy solution the way I can say it. There are group meetings. Is the whole meeting going to be changed because the lady is not there? We get it. Within whatever practical limitations are there, a woman should be given the opportunity to rest and allow her body to detox during that time. And I feel, that can make a huge difference to productivity even in the corporate sector. So more power to Spain and to whoever's thinking over there. I do hope the Indian, authorities are listening.
Yeah, and I hope everyone who are listening or watching, and if you have the capability of making that change in your organization apart from your own self, probably go ahead and do it. I'll try my luck as well at Cult. Because a lot of us trainers teach, and we teach physically draining classes. So I know I'm saying this loud and clear right now. I'm just going to, definitely try to see what we can do. But thanks so much for that. I know this is not enough. We need more information. I didn't even have the opportunity to ask many questions because it was like nonstop, one shot. But if there's, before we sign off, if there's one advice, I know you're saying that painless periods or, periods with a lot of pain, you just rest it out, for those 2-3 days. And it can be wonderful for the body and the mind, of course. Do some walking, some very light yoga. But any message that you would like to give for women who have a very, painful period, and a lot of women think it's normal to go through a painful period because it's also becoming so common. Everyone's going through some spasm, everyone's popping a tablet. So one message for, women who have painful period and popping tablets.
Yeah, so it's just like, PCOS and other such conditions that get ignored for a long time. Every month, the woman is lucky to get a report card of her health in the form of a period. Painful periods are not normal. Some mild amount of discomfort because the inner wall of the uterus is being literally shed, that much is fine. But anything beyond that, you may develop into a more serious condition like endometriosis. So do not ignore it. Your body is telling you something's not okay with me. Either the uterine lining got built up much thicker because there is a hormone imbalance, there's excess estrogen, and that thick wall, when the body tries to shed it, it has to crunch more. That's why you're getting this terrible pain. Or you may be having ovulation issues and so on. So, these are two separate topics. If you have painful periods, address them. It's not just about sitting at home for those 2 days. Get help. Absolutely. Have it diagnosed. Why are you having painful periods? It's not normal. Don't just swallow a Meftal and pretend everything is fine. That's not a good idea. You must get to the bottom of it. And once you have excellent periods, then it becomes a matter of choice. Painless is the only healthy way to look at a period. So do get professional help if you're consistently having painful periods.
I think that was fantastic information. So pain-free is the way to go, and try to rest it out for maybe 3 to 4 months during your periods and see what your body feels. That's what I did. Worked out all my life with periods. Ever since I met Dr. Mahesh, I've stopped working out during periods, except maybe when I have to do a shoot and I can't avoid it, then I still go ahead and do it. But it feels good, it feels different. So I think unless you experience it, the problem is a lot of women also feel like their performance is excellent when they have their periods. So it's a little difficult.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, so there are exceptions to the rule. I will not say that we have all the answers on this. But this is one of those issues where we literally find that 8 or 9 out of 10 women do better when they rest it out. There is that one woman or those 2 women who may be exceptions and they feel at their peak during their periods. And we're not going to pretend that they don't exist just because they don't fit our paradigm. We still don't know what's happening there. But in general, like you said, the best way is to try it for yourself. You do it for 3 months. If it works for you, there you have the answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you very much for giving us so much information and knowledge. It's truly going to benefit many, many, many women. And I hope a lot of the men are listening too and helping, the women in your life, right? But please share, because we definitely want precious information and knowledge like this to spread like wildfire. Okay, and tag us, ask us any questions if you have. We'll try to respond as many as we can. email us at hello@culfit. And yeah, subscribe, because we have a lot of amazing stuff coming up on this podcast of the Health Project. Thank you so much. See you soon in another episode. Thank you.